Jude Bellingham has broken La Liga and our minds with a scoring record you'd expect of a top striker. But wait a minute, he's not a striker, he's a midfielder. You can't be both at once, can you? Perhaps Jude Bellingham has invented a new position. Or maybe positions don't matter at all. Because we know Jude Bellingham, the midfielder, he starts as like a 10 or maybe an 8. He can go deep, he can go wide, he can go up top like this. But for Real Madrid right now, he's playing as this number 10 role, you think it's a number 10 role, in a 4-4-2 diamond. And he does that because these forwards kind of go a bit wider when they go forward, which leaves that space between them for Jude Bellingham to run into, not occupy. But sometimes he does also occupy it. So what position even is that? Because look, here he is. Is that what a midfielder does? That's what Alan Shearer does. So what does data tell us? Well, FBref tells us that if you compare him to other midfielders, he is a very good attacking midfielder, but also a very good midfielder-y midfielder, and also a very good defensive midfielder. He does everything at an elite level. And then you compare him to attacking midfielders or wingers, and once more you see he's a very good attacking midfielder or winger or attacking winger or midfielder, and a very good passing attacking midfielder or winger, and a very defensive attacking winger. And then his touch map tells us that he plays mostly on the left, but also comes inside the middle of the pitch and up to where a striker goes. And his shot map shows us that over time he's developed into someone who is basically a striker. He takes all his shots in the 6-yard box like a striker. And in fact, if you compare him on a scattergram to other players who have goals per game versus expected goals per game, he then profiles very much like a striker. These are all centre forwards. Jude Bellingham is in this little list. So the positions might not actually matter. And this reminds me of another player who was similar in this regard, and that was Steven Gerrard. Do you remember him? He was really good. Now, Steven Gerrard, for a certain amount of time, would play as a 6 and also an 8 box to box. We think of Steven Gerrard influencing everything. Box to box, all action energy. But Steven Gerrard also played a lot behind 2 forwards in a diamond midfield. And then what you had later on was when you had Fernando Torres, and they played more of a 4-5-1 like this. Steven Gerrard would be the player who would often come and be a second striker. So we think of Steven Gerrard being this all-action midfielder, but a lot of the time he was actually, like his best seasons when he scored all the goals, he was basically a forward as well as a midfielder. So what position even is that? How can two things exist at the same time and not be just one? And the other thing with Bellingham is he looks like the perfect footballer. He has the correct build to be the perfect footballer. If we were going to build a footballer right now in a science lab, what we'd want is height and strength, explosive power. And so what we would do is give him Cristiano Ronaldo's torso and then Zinedine Zidane's right leg to glide around the pitch and take all the shots and do the lovely goal creation. And then we'd have Lionel Messi's left leg. He doesn't need arms. And then we'd give him a head. And although the specimen might look perfect, he would go round in circles. It doesn't make sense. And it still doesn't answer what position Jude Bellingham actually even is. Well, let's strip it right down to basics. Throughout history, there have been 3 positions. We're ignoring goalkeepers, they don't count. Defenders, midfielders, and forwards. Now, I'd say he's 2 of these at the same time, but does that mean he's a mid-word? What is that? It sounds lame. How about positions within these? You get defensive midfielder, central midfielder, attacking midfielder, winger, striker, centre forward, false 9. These kind of all of these in one. But these aren't so much positions as roles. So maybe we're thinking about football all wrong. We've overcomplicated it. We need roles, not positions. Because positions don't really exist anymore. Think about formations. They're not really formations. What you see is not what you get on the pitch. A 4-3-3 very quickly becomes a 3-2-5. A 4-4-2 is a 2-3-5. And so I was thinking, maybe we need to consider footballers not as their positions, but as their roles. Now, John Muller of The Athletic has already done this. He's broken down positions into roles. They don't make sense anymore, positions. And John Muller has created a list of many roles. It's too many for me, John. And so what I've done is created a list, which fundamentally, comprehensively, puts players into all the roles that exist. And I'll tell you them now, because I've solved it. What we have here is a comprehensive list of every single player role that has ever existed in football and will exist in football, and I call it JJ's official player roles. Cue the music. Coming in at number 1, we've got dribbly boys with subcategories, line huggers, and rugby. Coming in at number 2, what we have is hoofers, aka fridge freezers. There's no need to explain it. Coming in at number 3, we have creators. And at number 4, we have destroyers. You see, this all makes lots of sense. And then we have below there, at number 5, carry number 5, what is it? I can't remember. Oh yes, goal getters. Goal getters, that's number 5 of player roles. Then of course, after 5, there is 6. And after 6, there is helpful friends. Helpful friends is a nice one. Now these are all definitive. Genre defining, I've used science, magic, and cunning to choose all of these. Now the seventh one is wide defenders who are actually just midfielders who aren't quite good enough in midfield to justify playing them really there, and so it just makes sense having them in defence, like Zinchenko. And the last role on our definitive list of player roles is God level. It's players who have no real set position. They don't exist, but they also exist at the same time all around us, and every one of us. This is the thing. They don't exist, but also they do exist. No one knows what position they really are because they don't have a set one. They both exist and they don't exist. No one knows where they're going. So this is the thing with Bellingham. You think of him as being an all-action, everywhere midfielder like Gerrard, but also he's not there at all. He's on the outskirts, but he's also essentially involved with the play. He does what Messi does. He influences things by kind of standing still and letting it go around him. That's how he's getting all these goals. Look at the evidence. Look how he bends and shifts and shapes time and space in front of him. He starts here. He's the best player on the pitch. Look, Jude Bellingham playing in the midfield. Here he is. And then look at the space that he's in. He manages to wander into that. People just sort of go away from him like he has a gravitational field. And so then he carries the ball past players towards the space, and then gets to where players are, and then sort of absorbs them like a planet, drawing people with his gravity. And then suddenly he manages to somehow squeeze his way through, and then he scores. Who else have you seen do that before? Messi, who also bends space and time and draws players into him. And here he is, about to score an absolute worldie for Real Madrid against Barcelona. Just standing around, walking around. Who else have you seen do that? Well, here's Jude Bellingham standing around, walking around, and he can see where the space is. And so he moves into the space, and then this guy comes in and sort of ruins the fun a bit. But then oddly, he just leaves him alone. The gravitational field pushes him away, and then Bellingham is all on his own, standing outside the penalty area. And would you know it, the ball naturally gravitates towards this space, and Bellingham has it. And then he unleashes hell, and it goes into the goal from 30 yards. Who else have you seen do that before? And that standing still thing is obviously a very Messi type technique. And I'm not saying Bellingham is Messi, they're very different players, we know that. But look at him here. He stands completely still. The ball comes in, he moves it on. The ball is still over here now. Bellingham stands completely still. Everyone moves around him. The play moves around Bellingham. He doesn't move with the play. The ball comes back to Bellingham, and now people start to engage. They come close. And he takes one player to one way. Look how he's managed to do this. He's put him onto a weird position. He's frozen him in time, and then he shifts the other way. Time has moved. He runs towards all these players here, and then because there's loads of players drawn in towards him, they don't see what happens. He flicks the ball to the side. That means he can run through for the 1-2. He gets in and he scores. Who else have you seen do that? I'll tell you who. Messi! Bellingham isn't a midfielder or a forward. He's everything all at once. Just like Messi. Messi is not a false nine or a winger or a midfielder or a striker. He's everything all at the same time. Everything happens around him, but he makes everything happen. These are the players who break football. So I'm not saying that Bellingham is Messi or the same as Messi. They're very different players, we know that. But Bellingham has that certain little je ne sais quoi that Messi also has that means that play goes around him. Bellingham is in the middle of play, but also outside of the play at the same time. So he doesn't have a set position. He's a midfielder, an attacking midfielder, and a striker at the same time because he goes wherever he needs to go for that part of the play, and not every player can do that. That's what makes Bellingham very special, and that's why players seem to move out of his way or come towards him whenever he's on the ball, because he has the magic. So has Bellingham invented a new position? Well, I'll let you be the judge by using my official player roles. Tell me who your players are for each role in the comments, and maybe I'll go in at some point and tell you if you're wrong or not. Do I have time to read all the comments? Probably not. Have fun in the comments.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.